It's been a long and tiring season for Arsenal players, fans and even the manager, but with one game left, Mikel Arteta is biting back at his critics in his pre-match press conference. We're going to talk Arsenal versus Southampton today, and we're also going to talk UEFA Women's Champions League final. Let's get started. Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. Wherever you are, I hope you are really well, and if you are in the UK, I hope you're looking forward to our bank holiday this weekend. Nice long weekend, hopefully some nice weather that we can all enjoy, and hopefully some good football. It is the final day of the Premier League season on Sunday, but there are 2 Arsenal matches going on this weekend. We have Arsenal versus Southampton on Sunday away at St Mary's, so we are obviously going to preview that today, but we're also going to talk very briefly about the Women's Champions League final that is tomorrow night at 5. Make sure you are watching that and supporting the ladies team, because that could be a really incredible achievement for them, but we will come on to that more later. Usually I ask for a quick favour halfway through the podcast or at the end of the podcast, and I will remind you halfway through, but I am just going to quickly ask for a favour to the listeners of Arsenal Unfiltered. If you've enjoyed listening to Arsenal Unfiltered this season, please go and find on your podcast app of choice, wherever you can review podcasts, and just leave a 5-star review, because I'm currently on a mission to try and get Arsenal Unfiltered into the ears of as many Arsenal fans as possible, and reviews really help me do that, so thank you so much. Okay, let's get started then. So the Southampton game, and let's be honest, it doesn't feel like there's much to play for. It's a bit of a weird one. It feels a little bit like a, like a friendly, or just like a nothing match at the end of the season. Mikel Arteta thinks it's important. I mean, in terms of league standing ramifications, it is extremely unlikely our league position will change. So the way this would have to go would be Manchester City would have to win, we would have to lose, and there would have to be an 8-goal swing in goal difference. So us lose 4-0 to Southampton and Manchester City to win 4-0 away at Fulham. So I think it's very, very unlikely, right? I think there's a couple of things going on there, not just the quality of our opponents, but just the quality of the 2 teams in general. I would expect Arsenal to finish second on 74 points, and Manchester City to finish third on 71. Both teams to win, and win fairly comfortably, I would imagine. That would take us to 20 wins this season, which of course is not enough. We had 28 last season and still didn't win the league. It's the 14 draws, of course. Liverpool can only get to 86, so they will be 3 shy of the total that got us second last season. That fills me with pain, but it is what it is. Timing is everything in football. Yeah, but in terms of Mikel Arteta, he is absolutely trying to keep his team motivated. He wants to talk. He has spoken, in his pre-match press conference about having as many points as possible, and he's referenced specifically having the best defensive record and winning the Golden Glove. Now, David Raya and Matt Sells are both tied on 13 clean sheets, and Nottingham Forest obviously have a huge game in their race for Champions League football against Chelsea. They're at home, so they've got a tougher task to keep a clean sheet. Both teams will absolutely be going for that win. I think, Forest really need a win. They can't get Champions League football with anything less than a win. Chelsea could technically draw and get Champions League football, but they'd need a result from Aston Villa that favours them. They are playing Manchester United away. I think in that game there's likely to be a fair few chances as both teams go for it, Chelsea and Nottingham Forest. So maybe Matt Sells will concede. So certainly looking at Arsenal trying to secure that Golden Glove for the 2nd season in a row, and he wants to finish on a high. And I don't blame him for that. It's always nice to go into the summer knowing you've won a game, you've won your last game. We obviously won our last home game against Newcastle, really pleased about that, but yeah, it's not the last game. Is it? In terms of team news, he has confirmed the issues with Timber. His surgery has happened now, and he has confirmed Saliba hamstring issue. He will be out, so no real surprises there. But he's been biting back at the critics of Arsenal, and I think listening to the press conference, I think it was Tom Canton who asked the question around whether there's kind of a worry about football being defined in a very binary term around success and failure. You win a trophy, you're a success. You don't win a trophy, you're a failure. And I think this question and the follow-up question about kind of how he does that kind of process with the players as well is really, really interesting. I won't read it verbatim, but I'll just pick out a couple of things. So he referenced PSG. He referenced the Inter PSG final. And he said they're only going to be judged if they win it. If not, they're going to, again, be like the last 12 years where they have tried and failed, essentially. And he was referencing, PSG, have they had a bad season if they lose to Inter? They've been trying for 12 years to win the Champions League. Are you going to tell me that they're a bad team because they haven't won it in 12 years, or they haven't won it this year? So he's talking about, actually, can you assign, a label like, you're a failure. PSG are a failure of a team. If they lose to Inter, it's one game. But we've all been kind of lauding PSG this year about how good they've been and how exceptional they've been. He then goes on to kind of expand on that when he's talking about the players. And he references specifically the fact that we've not won the Champions League in our whole history. So does that mean we are a failure in the Champions League? Very, very specifically, he mentioned that a couple of times. And then he starts asking these questions. Who are we then? What's our brand? What's our club? What do we stand for? What's our value? And again, he starts talking about moments. He wants to talk about, we need to live moments together. And Mikel Arteta has done this a lot, right? He's spoken about narrowing in on the moment, narrowing in on a game or a run of games, as opposed to kind of looking at the big picture. And I think it's really interesting to see how he's sort of biting back at this narrative. The view out there in let's say mainstream media is that if you win a trophy, you are a success, and if you don't win a trophy, you are a failure. And that there are certain people and certain outlets saying that Tottenham have had a better season than us because they won the Europa League. The worst Europa League there's been in many, many years, by the way, because no Champions League, for the first time, no Champions League teams have dropped down into that competition. So winning that Europa League is far less impressive than winning it in previous years where other English clubs have gone and done that. So, not to discredit them, they've won their trophy, fair enough, but Mikel Arteta has kind of bit back at that narrative of, if you don't win a trophy, you're a failure. Because I think he takes that quite personally. I think for me, it certainly felt like when he was saying those words, he was going, well, actually, I'm sorry, I just don't subscribe to that at all. What I think we've done here at this club in the past few years has been tremendous. And I think he wants to keep sending a message to his players, just as he did at the Emirates, where he addressed the crowd after the final home game against Newcastle. He spoke then about, make sure, he said this to the fans, make sure you thank these players because they have been through it. They have been through such difficult circumstances. And he spoke in the build-up around, actually, there are teams who have faced similar scenarios and they're 16th and 17th. We're second. These players have done incredibly well. And I think he views this season as a success in that way. In the fact that they've overcome a lot of difficulty and a lot of challenges, not to win something. So it's not, the be-all and end-all success. He wants to keep going. But I think he wants to keep his players and his staff focused on the fact of success can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be binary like the question asked. It can be judging your team on how they've dealt with scenarios, judging your team on what have they performed in the way that you want them to play, and have they performed against the kind of playing principles and the values that you have? Because again, let's look back at early 2024 We went on that incredible run, and Manchester City did the same thing at the same time and just pipped us to the post, really. I don't think you could ask any more of our players during that run. And, the mainstream media want to label that as a failure. Yes, you didn't win a trophy, and that's disappointing, but actually you did everything that you humanly could have done. And I think it's probably the same scenario here. We did everything we could have done. I know people will say, well, we could have done something in January, but I'm talking specifically about the players that are at the club. I'm not talking about the club in general. I think that's a different discussion. I'm talking specifically about the players that are at the club. I think they gave their maximum, and Arteta doesn't want to necessarily paint that as a success because we haven't won anything, but I think he doesn't want to allow it to be painted as a failure. So he bit back in the kind of answer to those comments, not at the question, to be fair. I think he's biting back at that narrative. Of course, he's spoken a little bit about resting, and I say a little bit. He keeps referencing it, which I think is really good, and I think he recognises the toll that this season has had on his players and on the fans. He's asked, how do you switch off this summer? And he spoke about, we have to do a lot of things to get this right. You need to rest, then you need to be very convinced and aligned with what you want to do to give yourself the next chance to be where you want to be. And then you need to start feeling that feeling in your tummy that you're willing to come back here on day one, fully motivated and fully enthusiastic to go again. So it's really interesting. I think, again, he's using this message, talking to his players and saying, you have to go away. This rest has to be a priority for you. Don't go away and, party all summer. Go away, find a yacht somewhere. These guys have got the money for that. Find a yacht in the south of France. Lie down, rest, recuperate, because he wants them to come back motivated, enthusiastic. And we, again, on the pitch, we just saw Mikel Arteta say, don't get it blurry or don't kind of lose the picture, I think he was saying, of what we're trying to do. Make sure that we keep that motivation, make sure that we keep that focus on what we're aiming to achieve. And, I think he's talking to his players again, go and get rested. Go and make sure that you come back next summer or at the end of next summer really motivated to do this again. And again, he was asked, well, are you excited for next season? But again, he referenced rest. I'm excited, but now I need to rest a little bit to calm down and start to make certain decisions in the most efficient way with the right timing to make sure that I can rest. Again, that's really interesting. So Mikel Arteta, I think, is basically saying, I feel like I'll be able to rest when some signings are done. That's what I read that as. Go and get me my players and I will rest. If you don't get me my players, I'm not going to feel rested. I'm not going to feel relaxed over the summer. So maybe that is a message to Andrea Berta. Go and get him Rodrigo. Go and get him Gyökeres. Get that sorted. Get these things done and allow Mikel Arteta to have a break. Okay, I'm going to take a break now. I'm going to take a rest. When I come back, I'm going to do lineup predictions. I'm going to do score predictions, and let's talk a little bit about the Women's Champions League final. Sorry for interrupting everyone, but I am on a mission and I need your help. I'm trying to get Arsenal Unfiltered into the ears of as many people as possible. And the best way that you can help me do that is by going and leaving a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts at. That really, really helps me grow the podcast and allows more people to hear the Arsenal Unfiltered coverage 3 times a week. So if you would be so kind to go and leave a review wherever you get your podcast from, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome back to this episode of Arsenal Unfiltered. This is the Arsenal vs Southampton preview podcast. In the first half, we went through some of Mikel Arteta's pre-match press conference comments, including where he bit back at the narrative that's going on around Arsenal at the moment and spoke a little bit about how he can get his players up for Sunday afternoon's game. Now I'm going to do some kind of lineup predictions, some score predictions, and then talk a little bit about the women's team because they have a massive game coming up on Saturday afternoon. Let's talk team predictions because we've lost Jurrien Timber, we've lost William Saliba, so there will be some changes, I think. So I'm presuming David Raya will go in goal, seeming Mikel Arteta's made those comments about trying to get the Golden Glove. So no worries there. There won't be a farewell tour for Neto. I think the back four is kind of forced upon us now. I'm not sure we have anyone left. I think we will see Ben White at right back. We will see Jakub Kiwior and Calafiori at centre back. And we'll see Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back. The only other player really that's available to us would be Zinchenko. Tomiyasu's out, Gabriel's out, Saliba's out, Timber's out. That's a fairly decent back four, isn't it? So, we have those other players left. That's it. Ben White, Calafiori, Kivior, and Mars Lewis-Skelly. Incredible that is the scenario we find ourselves in, but, I'm used to it now. Bit weird. Thomas Partey, I presume, will play along with Declan Rice and Martin Ødegaard. I think if there is one bit of this team that might change, we might see Merino start instead of Rice. Rice obviously had an issue in the Liverpool game, didn't play that game, came back for the Newcastle game, won the game for us, was very good. But I think he is another player who has been struggling for a while. So we might see Partey, Ødegaard, Merino as opposed to Partey, Rice, Ødegaard. Let's see. Let's see on that one. And then up front, I would imagine whether it's Rice or Merino in midfield, I think he will stick with the front three that started against Newcastle, which will be Bukayo Saka, Leandro Trossard and Gabriel Martinelli. I'd love to see Ethan Nwaneri play a bit of football. I think that would be a nice way to finish it off with this season. The main highlight, I think, for me, apart from a couple of individual games, that main positive of the season has been Ethan Nwaneri and Mars Lewis-Skelly. I'd love for us to finish our season with both of those players on the pitch. I don't think he'll start Ethan Nwaneri. But, oh my God, do not bring Raheem Sterling on for Bukayo Saka at 60 minutes. He does not need a farewell tour. Let's get Ethan Nwaneri some time on the pitch and finish this season with both of those guys on the pitch. I think that would be really nice. Predictions, well, it's probably going to be difficult for Arsenal to get fully up for this. I understand that. But it's going to be very difficult for Southampton to get fully up for this. They might want to go down fighting with their fans around them in the final game, but their manager doesn't give me that vibe. He doesn't feel like he's got that connection with the fans to drive that forward. I think there is a chance that Will Still is going to take over at Southampton. Who is that? He's the English guy who's been managing in France. Before he got his license, they were paying a fine for him to manage for them every single game. And he did a piece recently on Sky Sports that was fantastically interesting around some of his defensive work. And he showed a presentation on how he preps his team for games. It was really good. So really interesting watch if you want to go and watch that. That's on YouTube. Go and have a look. Will Still, Sky Sports appearance. So it looks like he'll take over. So the manager's not really up for it. I'm not sure the players are going to be up for it. And I watched them against Everton. And of course, Everton had their last game at Goodison Park. So it will have been a difficult fixture for Southampton anyway. But they were god-awful. Like, they were so bad. I'm going to go Arsenal 3, Southampton 0 in this prediction. I think we'll probably score an early goal. That will relax us and that will give us the opportunity to get control. I just think the quality will show through. Of course, I say that, right, but we don't have the best record against Southampton. We obviously beat them 3-1 in October, but we went behind in that game. We all remember the 3-3 in April 2023. I don't need to relive that. But before that, our previous win was in 2021. So we lost to them in 2022, drew with them again late 2022. Like, we've had some bad times against Southampton. Our record is not exactly incredible. Over the whole Premier League period against Southampton, which this is actually quite incredible. I'm blown away by this. Over the whole Premier League period, we've got 12 wins to their 7 wins with 8 draws. So actually, it's one of those teams that you think, oh yeah, Arsenal have just always been better than them, but we don't exactly have a dominant record over them. No way. I mean, there's definitely been some sour patches in our history against them. Wow, in 2015 we lost to them 4-0. Incredible. But I am confident in this scenario. I really am confident. I think we will win 3-0. Okay, so that's the men's team. Let's talk ever so quickly about the women's team, because there is a huge game tomorrow afternoon. 5 o'clock, Arsenal take on Barcelona in the UEFA Women's Champions League final. Arsenal, of course, completed their remontada against Lyon and Real Madrid. So we beat Real Madrid 3-2 on aggregate, having lost the first leg 2-0. We turned up at the Emirates and Alessia Russo especially took them apart. and did a really good job. Then against Lyon, I think that was more of the Caldente game, where we got that first goal in the second leg, again having been down from the first leg. We were away in the second leg this time, and went on to beat those guys 5-3 on aggregate. I think it was 4-1 in the second leg. So we've had a great route to the final. Really impressive. Lyon are a huge team in the women's game, but so are Barcelona, and they've taken down Wolfsburg and Chelsea 10-2 and 8-2 respectively. And in the women's game, that is quite incredible. I think Chelsea have just won their... wait, hang on. I need to check this. I'm not sure how many Chelsea have won in a row. But they have done well, Chelsea. Let's just say that. And my goodness, no, it's way more. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. They've won 6 on the bounce, Chelsea women's. So Barcelona have just done that team 8-2. Little bit nerve-wracking if you're an Arsenal fan. I think when you read around this game, the feeling is that Barcelona are going to dominate, and it's going to be a really, really tough challenge for Arsenal to win this. I think when I've watched Champions League finals before, there's always that feeling of there is a favourite. There's always kind of a favourite, but it's never a huge gap. I think, looking at this Champions League final, the UEFA Women's Champions League final, it's sounding like there is quite a gap. Arsenal will have to be brilliant to win this game. That is certainly what we are looking at, and I think we are certainly looking at players like Alessia Russo, Caldente. They're all going to have to be absolutely on top of their game and fantastic. Barcelona have won every single one of their last 9 Champions League games. So they're looking to become the first team to go 10 in a row in the competition during the same campaign by beating Arsenal. And I believe they've already wrapped up 2 trophies this year. Liga F title and Supercopa de España. They've got a Copa del Rey final coming up, but they need to get through this Champions League final before that. Look, I don't know much about this Barcelona team. I'm going to hold my hands up. I'm trying to get into women's football a little bit more, but I know that this is a seriously impressive team, and one that we will have to do incredibly well to overcome. But let's talk about this quickly. Football's a weird game, and we know strange things can happen. We've seen matches where Arsenal, I'm going to talk about Arsenal men's here, well, actually, Arsenal women's as well. Let's take the Lyon game. When we were down in the first leg, I think not many people were thinking, okay, we're going to get to the Champions League final here. 4-1 we beat them. They came out and produced a performance of the highest level. And it certainly feels like René Slegers has elevated that ceiling. The floor might not have come up yet. I think that's a sign of a really great team, is when your ceiling's really high, but your floor is not far below it. I think looking at what I've seen of the women's team, their kind of ceiling has gone up under René Slegers, but their floor hasn't quite caught up as well. There is still the odd strange result. They had a really odd result against Villa the other week, and I think there was some context around that. I think that was after the Lyon game and after that huge effort. So the floor hasn't come up. Arsenal's ceiling is really high, and they'll need it to be really, really high, and they'll need to reach that level to beat Barcelona. But they will also need some of the oddities of football. They'll maybe a red card, a penalty. You just never know. Barcelona just not being on it. There are so many things that could happen in Lisbon tomorrow night. And look, I'm excited. I'm going to watch this game. I'm excited to see how they do. And you've just got to cross your fingers and hope. Got to cross your fingers and hope that a Arsenal team can pick up a trophy this year and walk away with their heads held high. It will be a tall task, though. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Last game of the season. Thank you so much for listening this season. It really does mean the world to me. I will probably do a little bit more of a summary of the season on my Blue Sky account, so catch me there at Arsenal-Unfiltered at bluesky.social.com. That always is a difficult... They need to shorten that. Blue Sky, if you're listening, shorten your handles. They're really, really difficult. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for following. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you again very, very soon.